Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
In Limestone, Ohio, a small and quiet town, Marcos and Samantha live the kind of life many would consider ideal. Located in a peaceful, tree-lined neighborhood with simple but cozy homes, Limestone gives off a sense of stability. It's a place where people know each other and families seem to live in harmony. From the outside, Marcos and Samantha represent the definition of perfection. They're an ordinary couple with a well-established routine, no major surprises or complications. Marcos, 38, works as a renewable energy consultant. He has a solid career and is highly respected in his field, helping local businesses and projects adopt sustainable solutions. His job requires dedication and often keeps him busy for long hours, but he always tries to balance his professional life with time spent with his family. He's proud of what he's accomplished, but deep down, he feels the weight of responsibility and the constant demands his profession places on him. Still, the community sees him as the perfect husband, always committed, focused on his family and his work. Samantha, 36, is an interior designer. She runs her own successful business, creating custom spaces for local homes and businesses. Her work demands a lot of attention, and she often spends long hours planning and overseeing projects. While she loves her profession, something inside her feels missing. Unlike Marcos, who feels fulfilled by his work, Samantha starts questioning whether her career truly satisfies her. She's proud of what she's built, but she can't ignore the feeling of being stuck, trapped in a cycle of repetition. To those around her, though, she appears to be a successful woman who has everything under control. They have a 6-year-old daughter, Emily, who is the center of their lives. Emily is a sweet, energetic, and curious child. She's a constant source of joy for Marcos and Samantha, and her presence brings balance to their home. Emily loves playing in the backyard, building sandcastles, and exploring the world around her. The house is always filled with laughter and play, and Marcos and Samantha dedicate as much time as possible to her. To them, Emily is the bond that holds the family together and is undoubtedly the reason their lives feel complete. Every day revolves around Emily, getting ready for school, spending leisure time together, and of course, the moments when both parents sit down to talk with her about her day. In their free time, the couple usually takes quiet outings. Their routine doesn't involve big trips or adventures, just small escapes to the local park or dinner at a town restaurant. They enjoy each other's company and Emily's, engaging in simple, pleasant activities. On Friday nights, it's common for the family to gather on the couch, with Emily nestled between her parents, watching movies or reading books together. Despite the responsibilities they face in their jobs, Marcos and Samantha always try to keep that family connection strong and consistent. In short, Marcos, Samantha, and Emily's lives follow a clear and predictable path. They love and respect each other, their relationship is harmonious, and their routine seems satisfying. There are no major difficulties or signs that anything is wrong. Their lives are marked by simplicity and a pursuit of balance. Each day is filled with daily responsibilities, but also with moments of joy and genuine affection. Nothing seems out of place, and life appears to move forward, calm and secure. Until something begins to change. The story shifts when, during what seems like an innocent game, Emily, Marcos and Samantha's 6-year-old daughter, does something that catches Marcos's attention. While playing with her dolls, Emily acts out a scene that appears simple, but to Marcos, it triggers an uncomfortable feeling. She makes the doll representing her mother kiss the doll she calls Coach, referring to her school's soccer coach. When Marcos hears this, he doesn't fully understand the meaning of the phrase, assuming it might just be a child's playful nonsense. Yet, he can't shake the idea that something is off, that this wasn't just a product of a child's imagination. Curiosity begins to grow inside him. At first, he tries to dismiss what he heard, thinking Emily is just acting out a fantasy with her dolls, but doubt lingers, like a seed planted in his mind. In the days that follow, Marcos starts paying closer attention to Samantha's behavior. He notices small changes. She begins leaving the house more often and becomes more withdrawn. She spends more time in meetings and at work, but also seems increasingly distant emotionally. Though Marcos has no concrete reason to suspect anything, he starts feeling that something strange is going on. He observes the details, the way Samantha avoids eye contact, how she arrives home later, often claiming she stayed late at work or had social commitments. But he still isn't sure what's happening. There's no proof, just a growing sense that something isn't right. Suspicion begins to take shape when Marcos comes across something more tangible. He finds Ryan's name, the school soccer coach, in Samantha's text messages. Marcos tries to convince himself that Ryan's presence in the messages is harmless, maybe just related to Emily's school activities, but his gut won't let him rest. So he decides to investigate discreetly. Marcos starts paying closer attention to details, where Samantha goes, what she does, who she meets. Suspicion begins to take over his thoughts, and he can no longer ignore the signs. In a moment of intense unease, Marcos decides to act. His suspicion is turning into obsession, and he can't ignore the feeling that something is wrong any longer. He begins following Ryan, Emily's school soccer coach, to find out what's really going on. Marcos never imagined this would lead him to such a painful discovery. One afternoon, Marcos watches Ryan park his car in front of a local hotel. He approaches discreetly, keeping his distance but trying to make sense of what's happening. What seemed like a simple doubt quickly turns into a nightmare. Marcos sees Samantha entering the hotel alone, and the scene immediately confirms his worst fears. His stomach churns, but there's no turning back. Heart pounding, Marcos stays put, trying to process what's unfolding. He knows the only way to get answers is to keep watching. Soon after, Ryan also enters the hotel, meets Samantha, and warmly embraces her. Seeing this, Marcos is stunned, his mind racing at full speed. Now the confirmation is right in front of his eyes. The feeling of betrayal is overwhelming. Marcos knows he can't wait any longer. He can't let the emptiness of doubt continue. With anger and pain taking over, he decides to confront them immediately. He walks into the hotel, determined to face Samantha and Ryan, and the truth he dreads uncovering. Marcos can't hold back. He goes straight to Samantha and Ryan, and the scene that follows is direct and to the point. Marcos doesn't waste time on empty words or explanations. He simply asks, "What's going on here? What are you doing with him, Samantha?" The confrontation is quick, and Samantha stammers, trying to evade, but soon admits what's happening. Marcos feels his stomach twist and his blood boil seeing Samantha and Ryan together. Every smile, every touch, every intimate gesture he witnessed flashes through his mind, and a deep sense of disgust takes over. He walks toward them with firm steps, eyes locked on both, not allowing any excuse or explanation to distract him. "Samantha," he says, his voice heavy with anger and revulsion, "what you did is unforgivable. I can't even look at you without feeling disgusted by what you've done." He feels each word cut through her, seeing the shock and fear in her eyes. Ryan tries to back away, embarrassed, almost as if he could disappear from the situation. Marcos doesn't give him a chance. "Stop right there," he commands firmly. "What's yours is already taken care of. You'll answer for this." The coach swallows hard, unsure how to react to Marcos's authority and anger. He realizes there's no escape. Marcos continues, looking at Samantha, "You'll have to figure out somewhere else to live. We won't be sharing the same house anymore. It's over. There's no going back, no excuses." Each word is a blow, marking the end of the life they once built together. Without hesitation, Marcos informs Ryan of the formal consequences he'll face, "And you, Ryan, will be reported to the school board. Your behavior is unacceptable, and you'll be held accountable." He won't let anything stay hidden, wanting both of them to understand the seriousness of their actions. The scene is intense, filled with anger, pain, and determination. Marcos feels that, despite the pain tearing through his heart, he's finally regaining control. He makes it clear he won't allow his life and home to keep being affected by lies and betrayal. Samantha, speechless, tries to mumble some justification, but Marcos gives her no room. "There are no more explanations that matter to me," he says firmly and coldly. "What you did destroyed everything. It's too late." Each sentence is measured, every word direct, and he makes it clear the trust is broken beyond repair. He feels a mix of pain and relief, pain for what he's lost, relief for finally taking action, for not letting the betrayal continue eating away at his life. The breakup is final. The home that once felt safe and full of laughter is now the stage for an immediate separation, with clear and direct consequences for everyone involved. Marcos feels a mix of pain and relief. The decision has been made, and he knows from this moment on, nothing will ever be the same. Trust has been destroyed, and he can't continue in a marriage built on lies. Samantha, shocked by the speed of his reaction, tries to protest, but there's no space left for words. The breakup is immediate, and with it, the life Marcos and Samantha built together unravels. After the devastating confrontation, Samantha decides to leave the house. She moves in with her parents, taking Emily with her. The separation is sudden and painful, but despite everything, Marcos and Samantha try to maintain some sense of normalcy in Emily's life. They agree on shared custody, hoping it will help their daughter adjust to the new reality without further harm. However, it soon becomes clear that the transition won't be easy. Emily, once so cheerful and curious, starts to change. In the first days after the separation, she still clung to the hope that her parents would live together again. But over time, the weight of her father's absence began to show. Every time it was time to go to her mother's house, she would shut down. She'd cry silently, hide in her room, say she didn't want to play anymore. "Why can't Dad come with us?" she'd ask, her voice breaking Marcos's heart. He saw his daughter's pain with agonizing clarity. The bond between them, always strong, now seemed to be her emotional anchor. To try to ease Emily's suffering, Marcos did everything he could. He called every day, sent voice messages, picked her up from school when possible, and spent weekends with her. He kept up the nightly reading routine, even if it was over video calls, and never failed to ask how she was doing, not just about her day, but about how she felt. Samantha, on the other hand, felt the ground disappear beneath her. The daughter who once ran into her arms now kept her distance, responded in monosyllables, avoided sleeping at her house. Every attempt to reconnect seemed to make things worse. "You're sad because Dad isn't here," Samantha would say, trying to comfort her. But Emily would just turn away. The guilt of having broken up the family weighed on her, but it was her daughter's silent rejection that tore her apart the most. In a moment of desperation, not knowing how else to deal with the emptiness and frustration, Samantha made a drastic decision. Claiming Emily needed time and emotional stability, she suspended Marcos's visits. "She's confused," she told her ex-husband in a message. "She needs to reconnect with me. This can't go on like this." Marcos read the message with a lump in his throat. He knew this wasn't protection, it was punishment. Not just for him, but for Emily. He tried to talk, to appeal to reason, to remind her that their daughter wasn't a bargaining chip. But Samantha wouldn't budge. Days passed, and Emily's calls became rare, brief, filled with a sadness he couldn't ease. That's when Marcos contacted a lawyer. He didn't want a war. But he couldn't allow his daughter to be used as an emotional shield. The legal action for sole custody was filed based on the child's best interests, supported by medical and psychological documents showing the impact of the separation, especially after the contact was blocked. Messages between Samantha and Ryan were presented, proving the relationship began before the separation, reinforcing the context of family instability. But the core of the case wasn't the betrayal, it was the interference in the emotional bond between father and daughter. During the trial, Samantha tried to defend herself. She said she acted out of love, that she wanted to protect Emily from emotional chaos. "I'm her mother," she said, her voice trembling. "I just wanted her to feel safe with me again." But the judge was clear: the child's right to maintain a relationship with both parents is fundamental. Especially when one parent clearly shows willingness to care, while the other acts to block that bond. The court didn't grant full sole custody, but awarded primary custody to Marcos, with regular, supervised visits from Samantha, initially supported by psychological counseling. The judge emphasized that the separation couldn't become permanent and that the mother would receive support to rebuild her relationship with her daughter. The decision brought Marcos relief, but not victory. He didn't want to defeat Samantha, he wanted Emily to be happy. Still, he knew that at that moment, he was the safe haven she needed most. When they returned home, Emily ran to the backyard, as if breathing easier. He followed her, sat in the grass beside her, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. "Dad, can I build a sandcastle?" "Of course, sweetheart. Let's make the biggest one we've ever made." Over time, the routine settled again. Marcos took Emily to school, helped with homework, and they watched movies together on Friday nights. Laughter returned to the house, but now carried a different tone, more mature, more aware. Samantha's absence was felt, not as a physical void, but as an emotional scar that would take time to heal. Samantha, meanwhile, moved to another city. Limestone was filled with memories that wouldn't let her breathe. Ryan was fired from his coaching position just weeks after the scandal broke. The school board deemed his relationship with Samantha a serious ethical violation, especially given his direct contact with children. Though no crime was committed, the loss of trust was irreversible. Parents protested, colleagues distanced themselves, and he became an unwelcome figure in Limestone. Without references, he tried to start over in nearby towns, but his name always caught up with him, and he eventually ended up working as a rideshare driver, avoiding eye contact and questions. He didn't face legal charges, but he carried the weight of social rejection. The man once cheered on youth soccer fields now walked with his head down, burdened by the guilt of betraying a position of trust. He never worked with children again. And every time he saw a school game, he felt the emptiness of what he'd lost, not from revenge, but from choices that seemed small at the time and grew enormous later. Their relationship, which she once thought was a breath of fresh air, turned out to be a mistake that cost everything that mattered. She tried to start over. She took on a design project in Columbus, rented a small apartment, and began therapy. But nothing filled the emptiness. She wrote letters she never sent. She bought toys and stored them in a box. She called her parents, asked about Emily, but heard only short replies: "She's doing fine. She's with her dad." Even with court-ordered visits, Emily still resisted. In their first meetings, she stayed silent, avoided looking her mother in the eye. Samantha didn't push. She just sat, offered a drawing, a cookie, a hug, and waited. No promises. No demands. Out of respect for his daughter and the healing process, Marcos didn't force anything. "When you want to talk to Mom, I'm here," he'd say. And slowly, Emily began to ask, "Is Mom sad? Does she still love me?" "Of course she does," Marcos answered carefully. "Sometimes people make mistakes. But love doesn't disappear." As months passed, the visits became less tense. Emily still preferred staying with her father, but she began accepting outings with her mother. One day, she brought back a drawing, "My Family," with 3 figures, her, dad, and mom, separated by a dotted line, but all under the same sun. Samantha cried when she saw it. Not from redemption, but from a glimpse of hope. Marcos continued as a single father, but he didn't feel alone. He had Emily. He had his home. He had the certainty that, even with scars, he'd built something real, a home based on presence, love, and honesty. And Samantha, wherever she was, carried the pain of what she'd lost, but also the slow acceptance that maybe, one day, forgiveness could be possible. Not for her sake, but for Emily's. Because some breaks can't be fixed. But with time, patience, and humility, love might find a new way. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.